Hello everyone, welcome to ITSS Verona, and my name is Carlotta. I'm one of the members of the China and Asia Research Team. Today we're going to talk about the Belt and Road Initiative, and which is the massive infrastructure project initiated by China that is stretching all the way from East Asia to Europe. Most of all, today I would like to welcome Alice Politi, who is with us today to talk about the project. She is a PhD candidate at the Lau China Institute at King's College London. So welcome. Her research project is focused on the economic, geopolitical and security implication of the Belt and Road Initiative on Europe and on the Mediterranean region. So thank you for being here today with us.
Thank you, Carlotta. Thank you very much.
Pleasure. So I will start with our first question, which is related to the pandemic, of course, and the Belt and Road Initiative. So I would like to know, in your opinion, what do you think is the impact of the pandemic on the Belt and Road Initiative and how the project evolved over the past year?
So the COVID-19 pandemic has caused considerable financial distress for the Belt and Road Initiative participant countries, many of which are relatively small economies with less possibilities to take on new debt financing. However, the overall slowdown caused by COVID is expected to be manageable for banks and Chinese companies involved in the Belt and Road Initiative. There has been a notable decline in the value of Chinese-led new investments in Belt and Road Initiative countries, and this is mainly attributed to greater economic and financial pressure faced by participating countries, many of which tend to have a quite concentrated economy, whether it's in commodities or tourism. Therefore, we've seen a rise in financial distress affecting BRI-related projects that we can't expect to obviously disappear in 2021. And some Belt and Road Initiative participant countries have sought financial support from the International Monetary Fund or debt relief from G20 lenders. And those countries include like Pakistan, Tanzania, Zambia, and Angola, for example. And moreover, another consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic are projects delays, and also due to the closure of borders, therefore limiting obviously international movement, and credit strains and project delays faced by these countries could also cause financial losses to Chinese entities with large exposure to projects under the umbrella of the Belt and Road Initiative, such as China Development Bank or the Export-Import Bank of China. And however, like in general, it seems that the overall damage will be manageable for the banks and other Chinese companies involved.
Thank you so much. Now I wanted to move to the Western reaction that was seen towards the project. So the Belt and Road Initiative was welcomed by a very strong criticism in the West, and particularly in the United States, of course, where it was defined a debt trap form of diplomacy, especially in cases as we have seen in Sri Lanka. So to what extent do you think these claims are actually justified, and do you see any form of Western bias in these claims?
So I believe the expression debt trap is not really justified. First of all, for a quite simple fact that whilst the word trap portrays obviously manipulative or secretive scenario, the Belt and Road Initiative is actually consensual. The bilateral agreements signed in the framework of the Belt and Road Initiative are always mutually consensual, and then obviously there are financial risks and implications that can come with the agreements, and that should be considered, but there is no trap. China is often successful in appealing to willing counterparts, which don't consider themselves to be like victims or don't fear loss of their international sovereignty. And the case of the port of Hambantota in Sri Lanka that you mentioned actually supports this argument, as the choice of accepting Chinese loans to build the port in Hambantota was not forced, but consensual and motivated by domestic politics reasons, as the government in power at that time needed to raise political consensus domestically. So the Belt and Road Initiative project was initially initiated by the recipient government, which pursued its own domestic agendas. And obviously, political economy dynamics and governance problems on both sides have led to poorly conceived poorly managed projects, and these have resulted in substantial negative economic, political, environmental, and social consequences that are now forcing China to adjust its Belt and Road Initiative approach. However, host countries' governments should take greater responsibility in evaluating potential projects to ensure their viability and financial sustainability. And also the idea of the Belt and Road Initiative being a kind of master plan trapping countries in unsustainable debt is considered highly unlikely, owing to some consideration. First of all, economic factors are the primary driver of current Belt and Road Initiative projects, and China's development financing system is too fragmented and poorly coordinated to pursue such detailed and pre-established strategic objectives. Western policymakers have often described the narrative of the Belt and Road Initiative as a sort of secret plan, meticulously constructed by China, wanted to prey on victims, which are non-willing or unaware smaller and poorer countries. But however, this is contradicted by the fact that if the Belt and Road Initiative was a detailed master plan, its clumsiness and unmappability and unclear administration would mean that this precise plan was managed very inadequately, or that it was kept, I don't know, somehow secret even to the Chinese government's map makers. Therefore, more realistically, it is highly improbable that the Belt and Road Initiative is a detailed master plan driven by a malevolent intent. And I mean, I surely see some of the Western bias in these claims. There are different reasons why for Western countries it is so difficult to detect this plausible fact-based explanation that the Belt and Road Initiative is not a manipulative master plan. Firstly, for superpowers such as the US, which fear the Chinese threat, it is more convenient to advertise a storyline of China being driven by a malicious plan to prey victim countries, rather than admitting that China is rising as a superpower and is therefore claiming its strategic space, creating a zone where it can pursue its interests without the intrusion of the United States. And secondly, Western countries feel a sense of angst in seeing the ascent of a country as large as China, which has been a less assertive actor for such a long time without contesting Western powers in the past. And Western actors find the fact that China is presenting an alternative to the Western model of progress and modernization quite challenging. With the construction of a China threat policy frame emerging among think tanks and policymakers, therefore resulting in a kind of non-linear and biased narrative of the Belt and Road Initiative.
Thank you so much. That was really interesting. And if I can add something, I do share your view, especially on the fact that this project is consensual, it's based on consensus. It's not something that China is forcing on states. So that was really interesting. Thank you so much. I'll move on to the third question, which is more related to the geopolitical aspect of the Belt and Road Initiative. So the Malacca Dilemma is a term that was coined by President Hu Jintao back in 2003 to describe China's over-reliance on the Malacca Strait for its oil imports, which today still represents 80% of China's oil imports coming from places like Angola or the Middle East. So I wanted to ask if, in your opinion, the Belt and Road Initiative can really represent a solution for the Malacca Dilemma, so for China's over-reliance on the Malacca Strait.
So potentially it could. Potentially the new energy routes that are being built under the Belt and Road Initiative umbrella could mitigate the consequences of a possible US naval blockade of the Straits of Malacca, where over 80% of China's energy supply transits. A functioning port at Gwadar and a pipeline connecting it to China would theoretically allow China to bypass the Straits of Malacca and therefore help easing this dilemma. The Chinese government largely invested in CPEC, and the economic corridor would provide China access to Pakistan's Gwadar port in the Arabian Sea. And the Gwadar-Xinjiang pipeline would then enable China to bypass the Malacca Strait. Middle Eastern shipping tankers could dock in Gwadar, where the oil would be extracted and further transported to China through a series of pipelines. And moreover, even if this is obviously a more expensive option, the Iran-Pakistan pipeline could also be linked to Gwadar and potentially provide an additional avenue for energy imports and increased security of its energy supply. However, realistically, China will continue to remain dependent on the Malacca Strait, at least in the short term.
Thank you. And the last question, I think it's going to be the one more related to your research project at the Lau China Institute. So could you please tell us what do you see as the future impact of the Belt and Road Initiative on Europe, but also on a post-Brexit United Kingdom?
Sure. So the Belt and Road Initiative potentially offers a lot to Europe. China is attractive in terms of capital and investment and addresses unmet needs within Europe. As diversification is crucial to the financial security for Europe and the European Union, finding such a vast new source of investment is obviously a good opportunity, a positive opportunity. However, questions of values and cultural dissonance seems to affect the EU-Europe-China relationship, creating a kind of dual-track approach to the Belt and Road Initiative, generating divisions and differences among European countries in how they engage with China. Because of its size and the relevance, of course, the EU and more generally Europe works well as a trading partner and as a market for China. And this is shown also in the words of President Xi Jinping, who in 2014 described the Europe-China relationship as based on civilizational partnership. And this expression encapsulates the cooperation between China and Europe and the ways in which they operate as intellectual partners. However, Chinese flows of trade and investments are received in an ambivalent way in Europe and in the European Union. On the one hand, this new source of financial support is obviously recognized as a positive and factor and as an incentive to economic growth. Greece, for example, represents a successful case of Belt and Road Initiative related Chinese investments in this sense. However, even in this example, the Chinese stakes in the port of Piraeus were suspected to be behind their effective vetoing of a resolution from the EU, critical of Chinese human rights issues in June 2017. And even recently, I mean, with the comprehensive agreement on investments, we have seen the weight that the values issue has for Europe when dealing with China. And the EU sees itself as the EU, but Europe also in general, as the holder of a certain set of values, which are conceived and like considered as kind of universal, such as human rights or the notions of rule of law. But on the other hand, the Xi leadership has positioned itself against externally imposed values, which is a concept linked with the idea of defending China's stability and security. And WISE, the Belt and Road Initiative, is a concept that promotes flexibility and tolerance. It is also a way through which China states its intentions and presents its own model of development abroad. The Belt and Road Initiative, therefore, offers valuable opportunities to Europe in terms of trade and investments, a field where Europe has a long-lasting cooperation as a partner with China. However, it seems that now the issue of values has become even more important for Europe, also undermining the more pragmatic cooperation between the two actors, so like risking to undermine the more pragmatic cooperation between the two actors. These obviously risks to reduce the space for dialogue, even in those fields where solutions can logically be solved only through cooperation, such as climate change or pandemics, as we saw with COVID-19 pandemic. And regarding the impact on a post-Brexit UK, the Belt and Road Initiative is relevant on different levels. Even if for now, the UK is not likely to be like the prime destination of the Belt and Road Initiative projects, the Belt and Road Initiative projects impact on the economic well-being of different countries, which are of strategic importance to the UK. And moreover, in light of like Britain's relative kind of, we can call it post-Brexit geopolitical isolation, Britain could be required to adopt a firmer stance in dealing with China.
Okay, thank you so much. This was super interesting. Thank you for joining us today, and the best of luck with your research project for the future.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.